Welcome, welcome. So we've
Howdy.
got we've got Ron DeSantis's presidential announcement that he actually did on Twitter. Let me actually move my mic up a little bit. I should have done that a
Hey.
little sooner. Um, so there were some technical difficulties.
Yes, that's very disappointing. Um, I was waiting for it, and I tried to join the space. I was out still working, doing my blue collar delivery stuff, and I couldn't listen to it. It was kind of annoying. I was busy anyways, but um, I kind of got a small TDLR afterwards, and I listened to a little bit of it, but it was very unfortunate how it went down. I don't like the technical problems that have been happening with all the Twitter Spaces in general. Like not just this event. Like it's kind of common. I've gone to a lot of them.
Yeah,
Have you gone to any before?
yeah, I've joined them. I haven't personally noticed.
If you're in like 35 people that are just talking about
I've seen
something
a few
fun.
hundred people.
Okay, yeah,
That maybe 1,000 or so.
yeah.
Um, but
But even for the Twitter file situation, when they had the stuff on there, it's still a bunch of people on their phones not muting at the right time and not really knowing what to do, and it's not clear who has thing and if you can even hear the person. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? You know, it's it's always this, like, I I don't know that it has to, like, when you scale up to trying to have 100,000, 600,000, 640,000 people that were in the initial release of this, or the initial start of this event, and then it crashed, and then they just let like 100 something into it, and then they just kind of capped it because it was they didn't want to have it crash anymore. Like, is when it scales that high, what why are they doing it that way? Like, there's no reason why they couldn't have just had some sort of properly mic'd event where they were communicating and then they were just streaming it and people could watch a stream, but you don't have this two-way connection problem that makes it an even more difficult connection, like where you have all these mics and all these things that are all on mute or whatever else that are. It's I don't know why they can't have it just be like a regular YouTube video or a network TV video or whatever else, and just pipe it in through whatever you call Twitter Spaces and just have it be a link that is basically a stream. I don't know why it can't be that way, instead of trying to have it be through this other form factor.
sure. So, my opinion on it is, so I work in the tech industry, mostly gaming industry. But I generally kind of understand when you're building apps and you're creating new features and you have all these servers, um, that you're, and especially when they're new, you're gonna end up with problems. Like that's probably what's gonna happen, especially when it's new and fresh. Um, but I think that the reason that they wanted to do it on Twitter, and personally, I think it was a very smart idea. It's unfortunate that
Yeah.
because there was some 6 to 8 thousand, 800 thousand people who were trying to get in
Yeah.
and watch the thing. Um, but that's a math. Like you have to, like, from the perspective of somebody who is involved in that kind of environment, that
Yeah.
is a massive amount of people trying to who have the potential to interact, right? So
But
there's
like
a
you'll have
lot of
like
levels to it.
yeah, yeah, because of the potential to interact, that's what makes it hard.
Right.
But like I was listening to
I
a
see
little bit
what
of
you're
Tim Pool,
I
and he
see
was
what you're
saying that like
saying.
there's like 700,000 people at like some sort of Gatorade or whatever, some sort of random event that was being put on by some other company on YouTube. Um, that was just being just fine. And then there's other events where there are 2 million people that are streaming on YouTube. So I understand YouTube is different. They've been built for this and they're robust.
Right.
But yes, the form factor of them trying to have the possibility of interacting with all these individual little phones, so you can take questions and things like that. Like, while that is cool in concept, it's just a logistical nightmare. And also, the quality of the microphones are just set to whatever your speakerphone type of microphone situation is. It's not like you're getting the handset quality version. You're getting the speakerphone
Right, you're not getting the mainstream, high quality, high end that took decades to create,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that's something that people need to understand is that yes, you could go on YouTube and you could stream this, right? But if you go on YouTube, you're probably not going to get as many people. I mean, when you watch a Trump, if you're to go online and watch a live Trump rally, there's a lot of viewers who are in it, but everything that they do is here's a little comment, that's it, blip blip blip. But this is like a
You can
more or
get more
less
interactions from Twitter, assuming it goes well, but this didn't go
sure,
well.
which I think
Gets its own
um
kind of interactions.
yeah, but I think that there's a level of understanding that people should have in that, because like okay, when you're creating something and you're creating something special, creating something big, um you know that there's going to be hiccups, you know that there's going to be problems, but in order to get those problems figured out and addressed, you have to have the data behind, you have to have the data to show you where the holes are. You
Sure.
have to be able to see it. So it's like, you know, there's a lot of testing that has to go on, a lot of data that has to be brought into it. And so these kinds of issues are expected, and they actually are from the like from my perspective, I
Yeah.
think it was a massive success. It
So
having
that's
to
very interesting because I am like an Elon fanboy, and I always have an inkling to try to say, okay, so because I know that Elon is aspirationally trying to do his best, how can I give him credit for this in some way, or some benefit of the doubt? And this, I'm like, I just feel like this was done bad. I feel
well
like it could have been
but
done.
it wasn't, and so
Okay.
like I the way for your opinion on this, I'm kind of chalking it up to you just not really knowing and understanding how this process works, right? In order for this process to actually function and work, like I did not expect for this thing to just go completely smoothly when you can have this many people joining in because they've never had something
Yeah.
like this, right? And so when you've never had something that was like this on a technical level, you're breaking barriers is what's happening. And when you hit these barriers and you break through them, that should be viewed as a massive positive, because that means that you, like, when things crash because there's too many people, from the developer's standpoint, from the owner's standpoint, from most standpoints, it is a massive success because it says, look at how many people we actually have, look at how many people we can attract into this environment. Now if you view it through that perspective, we
Sure.
attracted so many people that it crashed the system. It made it crumble, right? Now it ruins the
I might be
event to
tainted
some
because
degree.
yeah, I might be tainted because I really wanted it to be a powerful launch for DeSantis because I'm a fan of his. So I guess I'm tainted because of that. But and also when I listened to some of the comments, it was just because it was just audio, and it was like speakerphone quality sound, and it looked like it's just
Baby steps,
a
like
low
you
energy
gotta.
saying thing, and it wasn't. It didn't feel like they had the energy it should have, and I felt like they could have done some sort of, like, he could have done some sort of fun gimmick or something because it's an Elon situation. So it could have been. I think it could have taken advantage of some of that type of thing. And I guess I
I
expected too
think
much.
what you were expecting was, like, here's like an analogy that I would make is like in like 1940, right? You're like, think of Twitter Spaces as like a technology, like a car, right? It from the 1940s, and you're expecting a 2023 Tesla, right? And it's like, well, it took a long time, and iteration after iteration, development, all kinds of efforts were going into this thing in order to make it what it's able to do. Now, it just happened to be that there were not enough cars that were made to be supplied to the market, right? There weren't enough Teslas because they didn't have it. They didn't even have the technology. Maybe they could put the wheels together and they could do this and they can do that, but they didn't have the ability to meet the demand of what the public wanted. Now, with all of this technology that's kind of like actively being developed, they're going to need to they're kind of driving on the road at night, and they don't see the bumps in the road. They can't see the bumps in the road because they don't know where they are. So as they go through, they're like, okay, there's a bump in the road here. We're going to make our headlights brighter.
Well,
We're
I'm
gonna
glad.
we're gonna install we're gonna install street lights so we can see further distance further down the line.
You're saying they're going through growing pains.
Yeah, I mean, it's simply growing pains. But what's really important to focus on and to look at with this event is what we had is a presidential announcement on Twitter, which is aimed to be a public town hall.
Yeah.
Right. And so what that does is it effectively grants credibility to the spaces. Now, the spaces isn't necessarily up to the full task, but we've still got another 2 years, basically another year for the elections cycle to kind of go through, virtually 2 years, when we have like presidential debates and stuff like that. And so what they can do is they can hit these kinds of things. When they hit these bumps now, that's fantastic. That's more than what you, I mean, it would be like, it would be astronomical if they managed to get 600, 700, 800,000 people into that space without it having any issues. I mean, that would be crazy.
I would like there to be more produced content that is available.
And that's what and that's what this does. When you see these bumps and you see the bumps happen because there's so many people that are interested, that means that there's that many more users who are active at one time. Then that means that it's like, okay, now we know now we know where our limitations are at this rate, right? With this many people, this is where our limitations are. We need to fix these things because now we have the data now, and we have the engineers who can work on resolving all of this stuff. So it's a big.
Well, I'm glad you're optimistic
success
about it because I just got. I mean, I'll have to feel it out, and of course, I'll try to watch the whole thing.
It'll get better.
Tomorrow. I was too busy at work to do a lot of that today. So.
Well, yeah, and you know there are going to be people who are disappointed in it, but I think that those people probably aren't. They're not involved in the technology industry, right? So you know, I mean, when you can look at this kind of a thing happening time and time again in video games, in streaming. I mean, this kind of thing happens because they don't know what to. They need to be able to have that data in order to work the system so that it can handle those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yes, it will. I know it'll improve. I was hoping it would already be there a little bit because I do think, I mean, the technical problem is the multiple connections and the possibilities for connecting, like of actually being able to take question from anybody, right? That's what the complication is, because these type of connection processes have existed for 15 years now,
which is young.
Yeah,
that's very young. Probably not even that long.
I don't see the value format. In an event like this. I just didn't see the value in. So what I would prefer is them to have a 2 or 3 person Twitter space in terms of the spaces, because they're not going to talk to the audience anyways, and then they just feed it into a stream that everyone's allowed to connect and watch, or to just click on Twitter and watch. You can watch it live, or you can watch it whenever.
But these are things that people still that they're actively working on. I mean, you saw the Periscope video that he did.
Yeah.
So he's
Oh
like,
yeah.
hey, you know what? We've got we've got a baseline of the technology that's going to allow us to do this. All we need to do is take it and improve upon it and just make it better. So in 5 years time, I mean, what what you want to happen is going to be there, but
That's
we've
true.
got growing pains. And the amazing thing about it is that when you have an audience, like even like you, this is what I want, this is what I wish it was. Well, they know that, well, we may not be able to do that now, and we hope that you have some understanding that of how difficult that process is, but we're going to work on getting there. We're going to work on creating exactly what it is that you want. And once they have those environments that are set up that say, hey, you know what, we can do just Twitter Spaces that's pure
So
audio, and
the
we can have hundreds of thousands of people that are in there who can have little reactions, and those things will all be recorded. Like, that's going to be an amazing thing. And then to pivot that
yeah.
into a video format, then
So
that's gonna take it to a whole nother level.
so this makes me think about, even though this is obviously a different thing that I said before with the multiple different kind of connections, it makes me think to a concept that I've thought about for many things, is where you have a video game that does it all perfectly. It's like, why can't we do this? Like, you're playing video games, and like I play these video games where everything's integrated perfectly. I have so many systems and searching and finding whatever else, and it's like everything's so orderly, so awesome, and like um it's
It
because of
didn't
the,
start that way.
yeah, but I'm saying like the technology is there for having things be smooth like that, and then all the apps that you encounter on phones and things like that. Like,
Well,
what kind of
that's different.
freaking mess is this? And why
That's
isn't it
different
like a video game app where they're perfect, where they're awesome?
because those took a long time of very hyper focused people who developed that technology from the ground up, right? What Elon's doing is he's going into a system that already
Yeah,
exists,
already
that was
old and written
poorly
poorly.
crafted,
Yeah.
and he has to fix it, right? And so it's like, to have the expectation, oh, you know, why can't this kind of happen? Why isn't the technology? You can't just take the code from one game and say, oh, this game did it, I'm just going to take what they did and I'm going to put it in my game. It's like that. It doesn't really work that way. The systems are completely different. They're put together structurally, everything completely different. You have to go from the ground up to redo the whole thing. So why it's I would say it's more, it's not that the technology is there, it's that the idea is there. And so, and there has been a level of expectations that has been um, trained into us to expect out of these products. So when a game comes out and it's like, hey, you know what, when we have this, it's not like an Assassin's Creed style game where it's like, hey, here's an Assassin's Creed, and then the next Assassin's Creed comes out and it's like it's a whole new world and everything, and then they add like three new mechanics, right? And it feels like a completely different game, right?
Yeah.
If you were to look at the first version of Assassin's Creed and then compare it to the newest version, it's like it's generally speaking the same engine, you know, on whatever platform it is that you're looking at,
Mm.
right? The whatever the because I mean they come out with like three or four per systems generation, right? But they're using the same engine and then they're iterating on top of it. They're changing things. But when you're dealing in this type of a technology, you don't really get to just say, oh, hey, here's Facebook, they have this
So you
thing.
use Twitter a lot more than I do. I just basically look at like some of the people that I know, and I see what they're talking about today, just because they usually post cool memes or funny things.
Sure.
But like,
Very simple stuff.
do you think that Twitter right now is a good app? Do you think it is easy to navigate and like understand? And do you feel like it's good, or like you can easily do what you want to do? I feel like it's
I
like
feel like it has issues in like if you're responding to other people, it can get a little confusing. I think that it's not hyper um intuitive in many ways.
I find that I
Um
can't follow a full conversation because I want to start. I want to watch. Like if somebody says something, I want to see the conversation around it, not just this person said this, and then I gotta somehow back up and I see what he's responding to. But I want to see all the people that are in my follow list. If they responded, I want to see all of it. If
sure.
all the people I follow, all the responses should be all listed underneath, and all the other plebs, there should be a mode where I don't have any of the plebs in there. Pleb being a regular person.
Right.
Um, it's
Somebody
just a
who's irrelevant
video
to
game term
you in
for
as
those who are
far as the
listening.
conversation goes.
Yeah, so
Right.
I would like it to be the people I follow, and so you have these interactions because the most fun thing for me is when you have like you know AOC and Ted Cruz or whatever argue like you want to see you want to see the personalities collide and how and
Right. It's a
what the
rabbit
whole big
hole type
picture
of a
is instead of just
situation.
like this person saying that was stupid or whatever else. Like all these comments that don't mean anything to me. It's just like, yeah, it's fine to have reactions. It's fine. It's basically like putting a heart up there.
Sure.
It's fine, but I feel like I can't do that. I feel like I can't just click on this and I see mostly all the people that I want to see respond to it.
Yeah.
There should be a mode to do that. Am I
It's
wrong? Does that exist?
no, it's you're not wrong because it's like a rabbit hole with all kinds of pathways. I've seen so what can often happen is you respond to somebody and they say something and or so say somebody says something and then you respond to it, but you respond to it with multiple tweets, right? But then they respond to one of
One of
your
the
other
tweets,
tweets,
yeah.
and so then now you've created another tunnel that everything is kind of
Uh,
going down, and the conversation and whatever it is, like it all starts getting
it's impossible because there's another
broken
tunnel.
up,
Okay, yeah.
right?
So that is why I don't use it that much. I do use it to find news stories actually.
Yeah,
But like the fun part would be to follow cool interactions between not necessarily
a
celebrities, but
focus.
the political people or the people in like in my Tesla space, like all the different Tesla people that I like, the Farzad and and there's a ton more I can't think, Dylan
Whoever
and
else, yeah.
whatever, all these people. So I like to be able to see all their reactions with each other and when they respond to things, but I don't enjoy searching for it.
Yeah, but I think that there is a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential there, and I think that as because I think that what Elon is effectively working on doing is making it a platform that enables it to do everything,
Yeah,
right? And
everything
that's
X.
going to take a long time. I mean, you can sit there and think like, well, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's YouTube, there's this, there's that, there's all these things. The technology is already there. Why can't we do this? It's like, well, it's not so simple. Why do you think that Facebook just bought Instagram? Because they were like, we could do this in our system, but
So,
it's like
or we can
it's
just
or we could just buy
yes.
it and then we can work on integrating
So
it
I
together.
secretly hope, not secretly, I guess, I hope that Elon is not waiting to build Twitter 2.0. Um, I hope that they're fixing it because they're fixing it, but that they're actually building it ground up somewhere and that eventually is going to take over. That's what I hope is happening. I doubt, I mean, if
I think he's going to do as much as he can with what he has, and I bet you that if he were to, um, what he might be doing is making these features so that they're independent on their own, and then they just get linked and connected with the technology that's already existing, And then what he does, and then on the side, he could make it, build it from the ground up in a better, different way. And then just because they're both compatible, he would just say, okay, now I'm going to take this down and I'm going to put this up and I'm going to attach this to this. And so
Like, I
then the
would love it if
feature,
there's
basically the new features and the new technology that it develops, that works with this side, it also works with this side. But I don't think, to be honest, I don't think that's where he's at right now. I think
yeah. There,
I don't think
he said
he's
approaching
even started on
profitability.
it.
He said they might be profitable by next month. They said that it depends. They said they're really close to profitability. So that was a big goal.
Sure.
And he said many times what Twitter is when he bought it was a plane at like a 90-degree angle, head towards the ground, and it's on fire, and the engines don't work, type of
Yep.
thing. And like that's why they had fired so many people so fast. And he said, you know what?
Yep.
There were a lot of good people. We had to go because we couldn't sort it all out. We just couldn't. That's how bad it was. And so that's the story
Yeah.
he tells. And so so now he's got to the point where it's stabilized, and he thinks he can become profitable here soon. And he wants to eventually be off of the advertisement model in terms of the major form of profitability. He wants to
Yeah.
eventually be subscription type based.
So moving on to the actual
Content.
announcement, the actual content. Um, I listened to about 45 minutes of it or so, 40, 42, 45.
I didn't get that much of it. I only got a couple minutes of it, and it was just the cut to him announcing it, and it were a couple sentences beforehand. Was it a so there was a third guy there, and basically
Yeah.
he was the one asking the questions, right?
Well, there were a few people that kind of joined and they asked questions. I think there was another congressman who also joined.
Mm.
And so, I think that, and Elon spoke, and, I kind of had to check myself a little bit, because I was kind of, as I was listening to it, and like Ron DeSantis would say something and Elon would basically kind of agree with him and kind of elaborate on whatever the topic was. And I was kind of like, this sounds kind of weird that you have like the owner of the platform who's kind of like in support of Ron DeSantis. He's talking positively of him. That
Yeah,
instinctually,
he's not an interviewer, so he probably doesn't really have much. Like he's just trying to be together with people, and like if you say something, like,
he
sure, I
needs to
agree.
be. I think he should be there because he's
Yeah.
like the attraction. He's the lightning rod that he attaches to Ron DeSantis so that
I
Ron
wish there were
DeSantis.
questions. I wish there were questions that he was given by some of his Twitter followers or whatever else. He said, "I'm gonna ask some of these questions here," and
So
laugh and whatever else. And
that's what I had to check myself on, is that this is a presidential announcement. This is not a debate.
okay,
This is not something that Ron DeSantis should even be challenged on. This is his time to say, I want to be president. I want to be,
that's very
here's what
fair.
I
You are
want to
correct.
do.
You are
And
correct.
and in this environment, at this stage, at this point, having people come in and be like, well, what about this? What about that? Like that would end up feeling really off. Like it felt off that wasn't happening because the space and the way that it was set up felt
Yeah.
like that's what should be happening. But that's why I had to check myself and say that's not actually what this is really about. What this is about, in effect, is he's announcing his presidency. He's giving what it is that he wants to do. Here's what I've done. Here's what I'm going to do. And then it's also, I'm here on this platform because this platform allows for freedom of speech, and I'm in support of boosting this platform, its credibility, and its
Did he
usership.
say that?
In effect, yes. He basically talked about how Elon Musk saved Twitter which helped to save free speech, because if we don't have free speech, then we don't really have anything. And so he was very grateful for Elon Musk,
Yeah.
and Elon Musk would kind of comment on that and say, yeah, this was a very important thing for us to do,
Mm-hmm.
because we want to enable conversations and we want pushback and we want this. And so it kind of just became, well, not that it didn't become anything. What it was Ron DeSantis announcing things, and on a platform that was gaining credibility because a presidential candidate was participating in it, and
Yeah.
in such a big and bold move by having this announcement on his platform. I mean, there wasn't even video,
No, there's audio
and
only.
it's like, when have we last seen a presidential announcement that didn't even have video? But that's not the important part. It's like, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I couldn't see him as he's reading his presidential
I was
his thing.
driving anyways. I was planning on listening. So I mean, but yes, it is quite new that they wouldn't have a video.
Right, but that's
Yeah.
that but that kind of points towards, hey, you know what? Like, this is also, I mean, there's lots of agendas that are kind of going on, and I don't think that it's that um Elon Musk necessarily is in support of Ron DeSantis, but I think that part of his agenda, Elon Musk's agenda, is let's do a stress test. And simultaneously, let's gain credibility, and let's boost free speech, and let's do all of these things. And you're in support of those things because I'm
I'm
going to help
glad
enable all
that
of
you
that.
feel that way. I just
I don't think everybody's going to feel that way, but I understand that that's what it is.
yeah, so um
It's a chess move.
I know that
It's a chess move that may look bad, but it has a strong end game.
there are people that are all in on Trump that, most of the people that feel like DeSantis shouldn't even be running because it's disrespectful. They will look at this and then they basically they see it all as bad because and now Elon's more bad because he's helping. It's I just don't like how
I don't think that people actually think that.
I know one
Do
person
you think
specifically that
that?
does. No, I know one person specifically that does.
Okay, well,
And I was
maybe
talking to them
not.
I was
Maybe not
talking to them on the phone
nobody.
for a long time today. So
Well, I bet you his opinion's going to change. I bet you his opinion's going to change. Um, I mean, that I think that Ron DeSantis running. I'm pro Ron DeSantis running,
yep.
but I'm pro Ron DeSantis running
To
in
get
the
established and to see his
yeah,
ideas and put them out there.
just to, so yeah, and
Yeah.
he and
Like,
in his role in this Twitter conversation, like this Twitter announcement
yeah.
of his presidential run, is an important thing that would not have happened with somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, obviously, it'd be good to put Ron DeSantis's his foreign policy on display and getting other things figured out. I mean, I guess I don't know if he said it here, but I mean, he was kind of having a stump speech that was like, "Let's make America Florida again" type of idea. I'm not sure if that's what he's doing. Um,
Yeah,
as his slogan.
he said some things that I thought were, um, at
We're
least
not
how I
Florida again, but
interpreted
yeah.
it. I For how I interpreted it, and I certainly could have interpreted it wrong. But one of the things that he said that was kind of bothersome to me was that somebody asked him about how for under the COVID measures, how he was able to do all of these things, but there were so many other pressures and all of these other from, like, I don't know what he's saying, like something about like the
Federal
federal government or
agencies and
something.
things like that, right?
Yeah, they were kind of like forcing people to try to do things, um or like promoting certain kinds of things, And that what it sounded like to me, and I could be wrong, is that what he wanted to do in effect was to make it so that other states would have to act like Florida did.
Mm.
And so I was kind of like, well, I actually agree with what Trump did, is he left everything up to the states. He let
Yeah.
the states rise or fall.
I heard
And I thought
another
that that's
another
the way
interview with
things
him.
should be.
I heard another interview with him that would happen like yesterday or the day before, where it was John Stossel interview. It happened a month ago, but he just released the full video recently. And I did listen to that today because that's all I could get. I couldn't listen to the
Did he say
Twitter
something
thing.
along those lines of like him kind of wanting to project what he
Well,
wants to
he
do
was that
onto other states?
it was definitely a bold take, but it was more that John Stossel was arguing a conservative position that along the ideas like, what about businesses that want to have their own regulations and whatever else, and what if they just have their small shop and they want to make sure anyone that comes in is wearing a mask? And DeSantis was basically like, we think that there was such hysteria and whatever else, we wanted to make sure we protected the right of the individuals, and we went that route. Said, it was a tough thing, but there was such hysteria that we. So basically, it was, yes, there are legs to stand on with that, but at the same time, a business should be able to have that ability to do that. It should be able to say, I mean, you don't want to
Yeah,
have it to be where I don't want it to be where federal agencies or
are dictating what small
yeah. So
businesses
like,
are
I
are
voted against
allowed
my
to
own
do.
self-interest in my first voting cycle, back in the 90s, where in Pierce County they put into effect basically a smoking ban indoors everywhere. And I voted no on it because
Yeah,
if a bowling alley wants to have smoking in there, let them have smoking in
yeah,
there. And I don't have to go. And so I just don't like, I don't, I, I don't think it's
yeah.
good to vote for what you want to happen always. It's like you have to vote in principle in some ways. And so even though there is a principled leg to stand on with the individual rights,
He's
same time,
overstepping it. I
it,
think he grossly oversteps it
yeah,
with that.
but the problem is that if he didn't do that, what ends up happening is like Costco, Walmart, Safeway, all these people, they're gonna have these national policies like you have to wear a mask everywhere. Then it basically is a mask mandate everywhere, and it's not
But
the
that's
small
up to
mom and
the
pops type.
businesses to enforce. When we put in the mask mandate, it was like the government issues a mask
Yeah.
mandate, and they
So
shouldn't do that. There shouldn't be mandates. And what it sounds to me
yes,
like is that Ron
that is
DeSantis
true.
is his position is effectively the exact opposite, which is that you
Yes.
are not able
So
to
that's why I'm saying
require people to wear a
It was hard to
mask.
hear him saying like, you know what, I'm glad he did it, but yeah,
If he wants
it's
to do it for his that's the thing. I mean, there's like okay, there's the
he
government
justified it
that
because
could
of the
do it,
hysteria. He justified it because people were being crazy. They're making kids do
which
whatever
is
else.
the
Like,
worst justification you can
yeah, I
do.
know.
You can't
Well,
you can't point to those things. And these are some of the things that I have great concerns about with Ron DeSantis is like, okay, like, hey, you know what? Like you may have good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if and the collapse of a country is paved with good intentions. And so it's like if what it sounds to me like is that he is for um taking the rights of other people and the choices of other people in favor of what he believes personally is the right thing to do.
there's definitely an argument there. I just know that.
That's a tough
I,
one.
yeah, I know. The problem is that because all the corporations and all the media and they're all on board with this stupid take that like they would be left with nowhere to go. I mean, I guess you can say maybe it's an opportunity for businesses to siphon off people from the big box stores and then whatever else, if they allowed them to even be open in the first place, right? Uh, so, like, what the reality on the ground was is that these places were only Best Buy and Costco were open. All other ones are closed, and then the big corporate, national corporate, liberal heads are just gonna be like mask required. And so he was. So yes, principally you can say he's wrong, but I mean, but there's some sort of leg to stand on. And so yes, that is it's tough. It's tough.
Okay,
I think it was
so
a tough
imagine
decision,
this.
and I'm glad he made it the way he did, even though it's
So imagine this, right? Imagine Trump didn't win 2016 and it was Hillary that won. And the Democrats are in power. And you remember how the narratives came out that if you were walking around without a mask, you were thought to be a murderer.
yeah,
You were thought to be someone who is actively trying to kill people,
I know,
right? Now,
so stupid.
right. Now, then you have Hillary Clinton who takes on that position, which is a very, very establishment position because it's aiming straight for control.
Yep.
And she says, I am enacting a nationwide mask mandate. If you are to go into any store, if you were to go anywhere, even into other people's homes, um, in order for your own protection, you must you must wear a mask. Now Trump was like, that's not a good thing that we can do. Look, I'm going to leave it up to governors, because I'm not going to overreach my power. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to implement a control apparatus that
So
then sets a new standard, right? And so what Ron DeSantis is effectively doing is he's basically doing the exact opposite. It may be in agreement with the population or with you to say, hey, look, you do not get to um, force people to wear a mask in order to do business. You don't get to do that. That's discrimination or whatever, right? So, but he's still enacting on principle. He's enacting a nationwide, national
yeah.
mandate,
Oh, I
right?
get
And
the argument,
that's
but
very scary.
maybe it's too fresh still. It probably will be too fresh for 10 years, but like, because I was definitely not okay with all of it.
Right. But
For
what if they
3
said,
years until like the beginning of this year, like you could still go into someplace in Seattle and they will ask for your Vax card and like you can screw off. So
yeah,
it's just dumb.
and then
And it,
they just lose your business and you kind of go on, right?
but the thing is they don't get punished because
Their
everyone in Seattle
punishment,
will just do it.
that's their right. You don't see
Ugh, I
you
hate it.
don't have the right,
You
nor
are
should you
correct.
have the right to
You are correct,
demand
but
their
screw those
service.
guys.
You don't have the right, nor should you have the right to demand their service on your terms.
Yeah, you are
It's a
correct.
free country. It's a free country, and we have to operate off of principles. And when you have somebody in power who is stomping on principles, or the principle that they're
Yeah.
choosing to take is to take your ability of your choice and dictate what you do,
So
that's a huge
so
problem,
early on during the
regardless of where you are on the political spectrum and however it is that you want to apply it.
so early on during the pandemic, I was making deliveries and I would just a lot of times it was to houses, but there were still some businesses I was delivering it to. But like if they didn't want like I would come and make a delivery, and if they said, "Oh, hey, you gonna put a mask on," I'll just leave them right here, no problem. Yeah, so just bring the empties. I'll leave them right here. I
Yeah.
was really nice, but like basically, I was not willing. To, I'm not gonna put a mask on for to put them around the corner inside of your and thing. It's like it's just whatever. So I was always trying to be as nice as possible. Um, I did have masks for a period of time, and like when I went to in the hospital and things like that for first several months, I wore masks or whatever. But like after it became evident that it was just cases, and people,
Fewer and fewer deaths.
yeah, well, even if, no, it doesn't matter. They count they
The
were
deaths would
counting
kind of
high
go
death
up and down,
numbers
sure.
anyways. I mean, it's not a matter of that. It was that they're getting more and more cases as we're ramping up tests and testing. And it's like, yes, you're going to have
Right.
more
Of
testing,
course,
you're
you're
going
going
to
to
have more
have more
results.
cases. You've
But it's
got more
not like more,
tests.
but it's like not more severe now because we're getting more result. More, oh my gosh, more people have had
Yeah.
it than ever. It's like, no, people have had this forever, and they've been relatively okay in certain ranges, right? Obviously,
Right.
for the elderly and people that are really overweight and people with respiratory issues. But after a certain point, you give people a head start of information that they don't have to be around you. They can be wearing their masks. And
Hmm.
they had this opposite idea of my mask protects you and your mask protects me. So like they did that to try to fake justify the fact that I would have to wear it instead of them just wearing it because they're worried about getting sick.
So, how concerned are you about Ron DeSantis, um, kind of doing power grabs and just what we were just talking about of
So you are correct.
dictating what the things are, and
So
how
you are
big of an
correct that
issue is that to
I'm
you?
wrong, Prince. You're right. I'm wrong principally in all this, and perhaps he was too in that sense. And I guess it should be concerning. Um, but because, but it's harder for me to be as concerned, even though I understand the gun could be turning the other way eventually, with someone else taking the same type of executive privilege. So I guess it's concerning. Depends on how it's. I think he was kind of drastic with this COVID thing. I think there are a lot of drastic measures taken all around by everybody, and so
I think
it's
he's
hard to
fine as a
it's
governor.
hard to put that up against anything else. I don't know that he's going to do that versus just random things. I mean, if he does,
Who
if he
knows?
oversteps, then that's an issue.
That's one of my main concerns about Ron DeSantis is I kind of have this strange gut feeling that he says a lot of the things that I like. He fights for the things that I agree with. He pushes an agenda that I am pro with in many aspects, but I get this establishment vibe from him. Um,
But that's not
and
even.
I kind of maybe
But
have
that's a separate.
developed that,
But that's a separate issue than what we were just talking about. Because the thing we were just talking about isn't really an establishment
but
thing.
it is.
That's a dictator type thing.
But it is. What do you think the establishment is? The establishment is aiming to create a backroom dictatorship where they are the ones who are in control of everything, and they
I
effectively
guess
just
so.
have somebody who's a puppet that goes through and enacts the things that they want. They've already got a ton of congressmen, they've already got a ton of senators, they've already got a ton of governors, they've got a ton of mayors, and until Trump and maybe all the way back through to at least Bush senior has been an establishment minus Donald Trump, right? So I mean, to think that and if you look at a lot of the things that has happened as we've gone through, I mean, you look at the Patriot Act, they these when Bush enacted the Patriot Act and he created that thing in order to effectively target his own citizens, right?
Yep.
So what happens is it's these little pieces that get inserted in and become a new standard, and then that just kind of gets forgotten about, and then the new one comes
It's
in, and
certain.
new one comes in, and then next thing you know, you've got no rights.
The enemy of the
You've got a dictator who you just met because they've only been in office for 2 or 3 years,
I
and
think
they're telling you what to do.
our worst enemy are emergency powers.
Well,
Emergency powers.
that's in part how you get them,
Yeah.
right? What is the saying? People will sacrifice freedom for security. Like
Yeah.
that's how we're gonna go. Is freedom for
So
security.
emergency powers are like like this COVID measure, COVID whatever
Yeah.
emergency power just went away, and that's why Title 42 was the thing that they're worried about with all that. But like, it's amazing how much they just declare emergency, and then we can do whatever we want, and so therefore they're incentivized to always be in an emergency situation,
What's
and
amazing
that's their
to me,
goal to be able to
what's a,
get their power.
what's amazing to me is that Trump did not create any um emergency powers that um, dictated anything over American citizens. Um, that has happened time and time again in my lifetime. They've all every presidential probably every 4 years they've done something. At least every president has done something where they crossed the line and taken away some aspect of our privacy, some aspect of our communication, some aspect of our freedom of information. I mean, right now we're going through freedom of information. Like they were, and that actually kind of was going on through Trump, but Trump was not a part of it. That was the media and the government intelligence agencies working together in order to create this media blackout of information, right? And they create this whole new narrative, but Trump is not really part of that. So when I hear Ron DeSantis talking about anything remotely towards, I'm like federally, I'm interested in enacting it so that states are unable to do X. That's a massive red flag. That's a huge red flag for me. I've liked him for a long time, but you know, I brought up Candace Owens a little while ago, um, in a few things before, and something that I kind of learned from her is that it's one thing to like things that people say, but when you give somebody power, when you put somebody in a position, um, you don't know what they're really going to do with that power, and they can turn it against you just like that. They can just they can flip a switch and suddenly you are the bad guy. And so I think that that's something that people should really watch out for. Hey, look, Ron DeSantis, you're a governor, you're doing great. You make a lot of great decisions, but if you had national power, that would be scary, because if you have the power to say, hey, you know what, I'm making it so that everybody is open. Well, when you're open, you still have the ability to close if you want to.
So, who is the best governor in America right now?
I mean, it might be Ron DeSantis.
Do you know? Do you have any other runners up in
I don't
mind?
even know that I have a runner up. I don't even think I have. I mean, who else is there of note?
Yeah, I mean, like, um, people will say like Christy Nome because she didn't lock people down either, really. But what
I
she
don't
did,
know enough about her. I do remember her a bit, and I
yeah,
remember
because she's an
being
attractive
impressed.
governor of a small state, and they didn't really lock down because they have a low population. I can't remember which
Right.
state it is. It's a
I
low
don't know if
population
she's
state.
been tested enough to um I think Ron DeSantis has been tested quite a bit, and I think that
Mhm.
he's come out on the right side of things in a lot of areas. Um, in some of the things that he has. So it's weird because he does do all these bans. He's like, you know what, like I'm not going to allow um I'm not going to allow surgeries on kids. They're not going to be able to get
Yeah.
hormone replacement therapy. I'm not going to enable these kinds of things. Now those are things that I'm in agreement with, and I think that those are appropriate things to dictate onto your state, right? I think that those are because what it's doing in effect is it is protecting a vulnerable group that is incapable of making um, rational
Adult
long
legal
term
decisions.
decisions. Yeah, they're not capable of making those kinds of decisions, and so when you have an environment that is trying to make it so that they can make those decisions, and you've got a culture that promotes those kinds of decisions, and then you've got a medical field that enables those kinds of decisions, I think that stepping in and saying, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen, is the right move, right? And that is a dictator style of a position, I suppose. But I think that it's very much warranted.
it is definitely a line because you have to know when to be a leader
Yeah.
and when to um and when to know you're going too far. So yeah, it is.
Not all situations are the same, but I think that
Yeah.
when you have a situation where, hey, you know what, like, um, I want to dictate for your safety as a general mass public, for your safety, I'm going to dictate that what you have to do is you have to get vaccinated and you have to wear a mask and
So
you have to close your store. Like when you
I
have
can
those
see
kinds of things,
I
I
can see
think
a
that
scenario. I can see a scenario where the best thing to do would be to not have any sort of um federal or government mandate whatsoever, but just advisories
yes,
and then allowing stores to make their own
advisories
choices, and you can just
advisories are fine.
choose to stop somewhere else, right?
I mean, Trump did
So,
advisories. He was like, "Yeah, I advise that you wear a mask. You don't have to." And I thought it was
but
really
when you
good
have
of him.
jurisdictions like closing beaches and arresting people or ticketing people, making people go home that are like in Michigan, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah. Like you couldn't even go out on a boat.
it's
Like it
criminal.
was like
Yeah,
you couldn't
like
go
why
fishing on
not?
a boat.
It's like why not?
Yeah.
And
It
meanwhile,
was
her
it was
husband
really
did.
silly.
Her
Yeah.
husband did.
Yeah.
And he knew how
And
ridiculous it
that's
was.
that's one of the things is like look at what people talk about, look at what people say and then look at what people do. And there's very different things. And when you have people like that, they should not be in power. And
So
I'm very cautious about Ron DeSantis taking those kinds of steps, and that's why
sure. I
I'm
don't
I
see that
would
as
be in
establishment
favor
though.
of.
I don't see that as an establishment thing. I think that is more that like he knows better and he just makes bigger calls than he should make. I don't even see it as I think anyone can do that. I think Trump could do
I
that.
agree, I agree, but I think that it is a sign of potential establishment of what he can fall into, right? Because who knows? Who knows? I mean, if what's gonna what may happen? Here's something that may happen, right? The establishment. What do we know about the establishment on presidential picks? We know for a fact they do not want Trump, and so they would likely dump a bunch of money
Yes.
into Ron DeSantis,
And they
right?
already
Now,
have, and
Ron,
that's the criticism against him is because he's taking all this money, and so they think he's under his thumb. It's not a guarantee that that's the
yeah,
case.
but if you're taking establishment money, that's
You take all the money.
it's a red flag, and
You
at
take all the money
minimum, it's a
unless it's
red
from
flag.
unless it's from the KKK or something, right? You take all the
No,
money, but you just say, but what you do need to do is make it clear and say, hey, so um,
I'm not going to do what you want.
I'm gonna. You're right.
Like,
You make it
thanks for
clear that
this,
hey, so
but I'm not
I'm
going to
not.
do it what
I
you
say like,
want.
you know what? I might have a dinner with you as a courtesy, thank you, whatever else, because of whatever else, or like hang out with my wife one, because you donated $300 million or something like that, But like, I'm not doing what you want me to do. It's like there's a certain level of
I'm
yes
not
where.
giving you money.
Mhm.
Well, then I'm not giving you money.
Then don't. That's what he has to be, right? So what I'm saying is that I think that enough people have interest in him beating out Trump that they're not even trying
They'll
to
take the
make
risk.
they're not even trying to get anything out of him. They're just like, I don't he's not Trump. I want someone not Trump, please. And so they're throwing money at him. Uh, and
I
plus,
think he's at least easier to control and manipulate, even if he's against the establishment. I think that he would have gained enough influence from the establishment to have levels of trust. I mean, I think that they like even Trump fell in with the establishment to some degree because he came up with ideas. He was like, "Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that," and then the establishment basically came in and was like, "Whoa, you can't do that, you can't do this," and basically, in some ways, threatened more problems for him.
so
And so
on a lot of
Trump was
things that
able to
Trump
hold strong on a
a lot of
lot
times
of
Trump would
things.
say a bunch of stuff, to like his staff and cabinet, and then they just do the right thing instead. Like, unfortunately, like meaning like when I say the right thing, what I mean is like if there's certain procedural ways, or if there's certain, or if there's
Sure,
like, okay, now I get it what you're doing, but we can't kill
we
the
can't
cat.
do that.
We can't just throw that cat in the garbage can or whatever, whatever it is. Like
Yeah,
we understand what you aspirationally what you're going for here, and the staff just kind of does stuff, and then when things go well, Trump's not, as long as everything goes well, Trump's not going to yell at him.
yeah,
So I think a lot of that happened where it wasn't that Trump was always on point, because he's not always on point. He just has
nope,
a good gut reaction to things, and he understands that things don't smell right, and that and he has a take in a direction that's correct, but he doesn't always have the, like, he picked bad people. He
yeah.
and plus he rubs. I don't think he. I
He
don't think
rubs a
he
lot of people
still.
wrong.
I don't think he. I think he needs to have people that get Trump is going to call you first rate or third rate, depending on his mood that day and how nice you are to him. And then,
Yeah,
like,
don't
you need
take
to
it
have
personal.
people that are willing to take it on the chin and then know that he's going to come back around, like, which is a thing that most people don't have to worry about.
Yeah,
But that's how so he has to get people that have a level of competence and loyalty to him, that don't take it personally when something inevitably goes wrong, and they get yelled at or whatever. So
hmm,
I think it's kind of a personal flaw on his part, but it's also part of his charm in some ways. I don't know. It's weird. Picking good people is for him is different than just picking good people. You can't just pick people that are competent and have a good record on different things. It doesn't matter, because they're going to be, a lot of people are just going to be dismissive. Like, they're grown ass men. They're like, you can't treat me this way.
yeah,
It's like you can't. It's hard. You got to find people that have enough either beta in them, or enough commingling alpha spirit where they get along. Like certain people he developed respect for, that had power, that he was able to not really. I mean, he had the last call because he's president, but he was able to actually just interact strongly with them. It's
well, so here's to kind of wrap things up, because we're just
yeah.
about at time. um you know, presuming that Ron DeSantis wins the primary and the election, um I would hope, my fear in a sense is that Ron DeSantis would end up effectively being Obama, in that he came in with this wonderful aura that suited that party's agenda, that fit the mold just right, which Ron DeSantis fits the mold just right
Mm-hmm.
for conservatives.
Yep.
And he comes in with the hope, he comes in with the change, that things are going to be different. We're not going to keep doing the same things that we've been doing before. And then he turns around and he enters us into more wars. He does this and he does that, and all kinds of different things. So it's a
So
concern that I have, and
yep,
I think it's a warranted concern.
it is a warrant
But I
concern always, because you can never tell.
right, but just like what I did with Trump, because I hated Trump all through the
Oh
2016
yeah.
election. But what I made sure to do is I said, okay, he's the president now, but let's see, talk is talk, but let's see what his actions are. Let's see what he actually does with the office. And if he can actually do what I want him to do, then double thumbs up. I'll be very
Oh yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
And
If he
so
goes
we'll
in,
see if
especially
Ron
since he's
DeSantis.
angry at all the people, and he goes in there and just like starts like treating it like Twitter, like just chopping off
That's what I
arms
thought
and
was going to
legs.
happen. It was I thought it was going to just end up being a complete clown show, but it wasn't. You know,
Yeah.
it may have looked
I hope
looked
that he
that
did.
way to
I
some
hope that
people.
he, if he becomes president again, I hope that he's able to just put in things to take the deep state out of permanent residency.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that, and I think there's a
Change
lot of
that and
things that
then
would
just
warrant
fire
it.
people. Just get
I think he would
new
have
people in
to
there.
assign a new FBI director
Yeah.
that was intent on removing, on just completely gutting the FBI
And
and removing all kinds of people.
I'm even a fan of them having to replace nearly everyone down to the
Yep,
janitor in the State Department every election
yeah,
cycle. I'm fine with that too because I don't want the embedded people that just have the ways of schmoozing and getting things done and whatever else. I
yeah,
want them all to have to I don't want them to be embedded. I want them to like and they should be aligned with the current administration. So you shouldn't have them either. Yeah, it's so like there's nothing wrong with having someone that's another party, that's in the State Department per se, but there's also nothing wrong with having like if you elected the president that all the people in the State Department are on board with the
hmm,
agenda. You shouldn't have a fight. You shouldn't be fighting against like you're trying to have your agenda and behind the scenes they're trying to stop what you're doing. I think that that's the job of the opposition party, and it's the job of the Congress, and things like that. So I would love it if we just wiped them all out, just like you have a 4-year term with
yeah,
along with this guy's stuff.
yeah. I'm not necessarily opposed, but I think
Yep,
that's a
good.
good way to stop. I think we'll call it. I thought that was a good conversation. Um, if you made it this far, drop a like. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed it and you're looking forward to the next one, hit the bell. All right. Take care, guys.